Welcome to Matters of the Soul. My name is Erich Schoeman. It's nice to see you and to talk to you. It is a great evening tonight for me because this is my first live stream from Matters of the Soul, and it's wonderful to talk to you. And tonight we're talking about burnout prevention, and that is and restoration, and that is a topic that is very vital and very current at the moment in South Africa and in the rest of the world, isn't it? Especially with the times that we're living in, if you consider the COVID-19 pandemic that is causing a lot of havoc worldwide, and just life in general and how tough it can be. So tonight I'm going to share with you some of my thoughts and some of the clinical and or the research findings on burnout and what it is, so that you can also be empowered and maybe make some changes in your own life. So the question, first of all, is what is burnout? Now, burnout is not is an emotional and psychological, physical, and even a spiritual response to ongoing stress in your world. So it is long-term stress, and it's stress that will take that takes its toll in your own life. You know. In my own life, I've had an experience of burnout. So a couple of years ago, about 10 years ago, I was totally overworked, and it was really difficult, and I got burnt out, and it was very hard. So it was not an easy experience, and it took me about 2 years really to change and to work with that. So it was a hard experience, and coming out of burnout and learning how to deal with it personally, it's brought me to a place of wanting to also share some of that information. So I'll weave my own story into what I'm also going to say tonight. It is hard when you are burnt out, and it is hard to also face all the things that you have to face in your life, because life goes on even though you are burnt out. And then, we can come to a place where we even feel depressed and highly anxious, because when we go to the place of burnt out, that means we are burnt out of fuel because of the long-term and ongoing overload of stress that we've experienced over a long period of time. And it affects your psyche, it affects your psychological functioning, it affects your emotional functioning, your physical body, and then obviously that circles out to your relationships and the rest of your life. Now, traditionally, burnout was diagnosed or identified about 50 years ago amongst some registered nurses and counselors and trauma counselors and those people who were working with difficult situations, and they got what we call a compassion fatigue. Now, compassion fatigue is a hard one as well, because that is fatigue that comes when you've given too much compassion over too long a time. But certain symptoms started to set in, and they started to become tired and exhausted. So it's an exhaustion that you experience from just giving too much. But we'll see a bit later on tonight how that manifests in your body and in your psyche, so how burnout works. But let's have a look at some of those symptoms. If you look at the physical symptoms, first of all, we usually recognize the physical symptoms first, because those are the ones that are clearest to us, isn't it? We feel stuff in our body. And obviously the main one is you feel fatigued, you feel drained. And then you've got difficulty sleeping. Your appetite changes. You even get digestive problems. I got irritable bowel syndrome, and it was tough. You've got low immunity because you're under stress for such a long time, and then you get colds. And if you don't sleep well, that also exacerbates the whole burnout, because then the next day you're tired, you can't concentrate. So it's one thing that leads to another. And in the end, you get stressed up and your body reacts with pains and aches, and can even develop some psychological symptoms. If we have a look at those ones, those are some depressive symptoms, anxiety. Now, burnout could lead to depression, and sometimes they are linked. Burnout is not an official diagnosis in the DSM-4 or DSM-5 these days. It's not an official diagnosis, but It is recognized by the World Health Organization as a syndrome. It is tied to your work-related burnout, but work these days we can be defined as a very wide definition. Moms who stay at home and look after children or homeschool children, that's also work. Even staying at home and just, and doing whatever you need to do to keep the family going, that's definitely work. And then you get work in ministry, work in occupationals, when you're in a profession, you get work in various situations, and all of them can have an effect that leads to burnout. Now, yes, sometimes caring for a loved one that is ill, and that can also be carer burnout, when you get to a place where you've given too much. So burnout has a lot of side definitions as well. Sometimes you get what some of the paramedics would say, they get secondary victimization or traumatization. That's a better word. So you'll get those symptoms as well, but it's all linked to a kind of burnout. Now, even therapists like myself will get the compassion fatigue type of burnout. Whatever type it is, you're tired, and you can even have feelings of guilt, because now you start to feel tired. You don't feel up to doing what you have to do anymore. You can get frustrated and angry more often than not, and you might even develop what I also had, a cynical, critical, pessimistic, attitude and towards life. So what then happens is that your perspective gets colored in by your tiredness, and then you don't have energy to do what you need to do, and therefore you start to resent what you have to do, and that leads to all kinds of other dilemmas. In the end, you just don't care anymore. So that's where it gets really bad, and it's hard. You might even have feelings that are a bit more intense, like you feel like a failure, or detached and blunt. It is usually, and if there's sometimes a feeling of, I'm not really satisfied, I have not really achieved success, and you start to lose motivation to do what you have to do. Sometimes we'll look at some of the causes of burnout as well. There are various causes, but let's look at some of the things you might do, your behavior when you feel burnt out. You start to withdraw from responsibilities. You might find refuge in food and alcohol, or even drugs. Procrastination, that's a nice big one. No, that's something that I have to work against. You start to, they say, absenteeism. So you start to dodge work, and your memory and concentration starts to slide. It becomes harder to do what you have to do. And then the other one is that you get to a place where you might have anger outbursts. Now, if you could see my slide, I've got a guy who's smashing his laptop screen into pieces. Or you might start lying and become highly defensive and withdraw from other people. So you're actually trying to just get away from what is bothering you. Spiritually speaking, Matters of the Soul is a Christian psychology ministry and a non-profit organization. And so you look at the Christian worldview as well, taken in with the psychological perspective. And when you're a Christian, you might even let's say you're in ministry, you might start to doubt God's calling. I certainly did. I said, I don't know if psychology is for me anymore. I don't know if I want to be a psychologist anymore. This is too much. It's too heavy. I'm just going to quit and just get away, just to relieve the stress. You might start to doubt God. Your faith might start to waver, or you might even start to change some of the things you thought you believed before. Some people might even throw their fist at the Lord and say, whatever, I'm angry at you. Now, burnout on the one hand is here, but then it's related to stress. That's on the other hand. And stress and burnout work. They are the evil twins, they work together. And what stress does is, stress is a heightened state of where you're heightened, and you are almost to a degree activated, because now you want to deal with the problems. You are alert, and what's happening is that you're in a place where you are heightened. You're trying to solve the problems, and it's just difficult. When you are stressed, you are running around like crazy, and you are in the fight and flight zone, where you are saying, listen, I cannot do this anymore. I just want to solve the problems. I just have to keep all of the balls in the air. And that's where when you are in a heightened state of alertness all the time, you are stressed out. And when you're stressed out for long enough and you push yourself over those limits that initially you can do it and you can say, listen, I'm pushing this, and I'm just going to push as far as I can. But later on, you'll realize you cannot. You just cannot do it. You start to slide, and it's difficult to keep up. So it's hard, and it's hard when you are under that amount of stress for a long time. That's when you start to buckle. So you can obviously then figure out it is about managing the stress to prevent it. So lowering the levels of stress and extending the period of time that you are under stress, so that you can start to sort out that burnout and start to prevent it. But many a times we only realize that we're burnt out when we're burnt out. So it's difficult. I wanted to share slides with you, but I do not know how to do it for now. So I cannot find the button that I thought was there is not there. So I'm just going to talk about the slides, and later on I'll post some of the slides on our Facebook page, and you can go and have a look at them, some of the summary slides. Now, when you then find what a definition of stress is, because stress is a bit different from burnout then. But what is stress? So stress is then, you have stressors in your life. That's the work pressure, that's your marital problems or whatever, or the country's load shedding problems like in South Africa. Like we never know whether the power's going to go out. And we've got crime here in our country. We've got financial pressure on the family. We've got children's education, and you run around after your child's diapers and cleaning diapers and washing dishes. All those things demand stuff from you. And now stress is your reaction to those demands. And, when those demands exceed your coping resources, then you start to feel stress. And usually with burnout, those demands come from your work environment. And like I said, your children can be work too. They can also be play, but they're work. I know I've got two of them. They're a blessing, but they're also hard work. There's a stress curve. Now, initially, when you look at a bell curve, if you have a little bit of stress, obviously you won't get burnt out. But if you have that prolonged stress without the necessary balance, then you'll get to a place of burnout. So stress is then being overengaged, and your emotions are overreactive, and you're urgent, and you're hyperactive. You struggle to actually relax. I found that with myself. I'll sit in front of a movie and I've got to do something. It's Saturday night. I'm supposed to just veg on the couch and just watch a movie, but I'm so heightened and I'm so on alert. It's because I've been working so long that I've not rested often enough, so that I've not come down. So I'm heightened. It's as if I just have to do something all the time. Now, what then happens is you feel a lot of anxiety. Your damage becomes physical because you get all these rush of fight and flight hormones that go through your body. And so what happens is that stress may actually kill you prematurely, but you start to experience all these things. And then with burnout, after that prolonged period of loaded stress, you start to become more after a panic state as well for a long time. You start to become disengaged. Your emotions become blunted. It's helpless feelings, hopeless. I've been there, and it is hard. It is very hard. It is not easy. It is really hopelessness and helplessness is easy to say, but it's very difficult to experience. It's very similar to depression. So you feel like you are that there's no way out of this. You start to lose hope in life, and then you start to lose the hope that things can change. So you start to lose hope in the future. Hope has a future-oriented perspective, isn't it? It's not like you hope something is going to change. When you lose hope, you lose a lot. And that leads to detachment and a place of depression where you feel like you are depressed. Something is pushing down on you so heavily that you cannot lift it up anymore. And then the damage becomes emotional. And in the end, it may not seem like life is worth living anymore. So now, if you wanted to have a look at some of the causes of burnout, then now I've given some of the broad causes. Obviously, it is working too hard for too long, and doing too much. It is giving too much out of your petrol tank or your fuel tank and not refueling. It is that simple principle. That's where it boils down to. But usually, burnout also comes because of stress from a lot of areas that you have a sense of helplessness with. And then when you are overworked, and there is marital problems added to that, and there's financial pressure, and it is overcast for 3 weeks on end. In South Africa, we're not used to that. I know in the UK it is normal. I've been there. But when you have all of those things come together for quite some time, and you have to deal with all of those stressors, then it starts to become very difficult. So, especially if we can divide let's say the reasons why you experience the burnout into the three main areas. Let's say your work reasons, your lifestyle reasons, and your personality reasons. When we look at your work, it'll be in a situation or a state where you feel you don't have a lot of control. You might be in that situation where you have little control over what's going on. There might be superiors, usually in the workplace, that is harsh or critical or authoritarian rather. They come down on you quite harshly, and they can be unreasonable. And there might be an experience of little or no acknowledgement. So you're doing a lot of work, you're trying your best, you get criticism, you don't get acknowledgement. There might be unrealistic expectations, unclear expectations as well. I mean, or you're left on your own. You've got to do all of these things, and you don't have a lot of support and guidance. It just makes it hard. So and there might even be bullying at work. Or in one of my previous jobs, it might be as boring and monotonous as eating wood. It's difficult. So it's a boring job for too long, or not doing proper, stimulating, rewarding work for a long time also becomes a state of burnout. You can see that in Mr. Incredible. I mean, he looks so depressed when he's sitting behind his desk in that insurance office. So it is hard. That's why he threw his boss through 7 offices. So it might be a very chaotic or demanding work environment. And some people work in a chaotic environment. I've been in sales offices where it's very heightened and high alert. But if it's a chaotic environment that doesn't feel like it's rewarding you, but there's a lot of conflict, and in the end, the pluses are less than and the minuses are more, then you start to get to a place of resentment. And if it keeps on for a while, and then the purpose starts to waver. Now, lifestyle reasons, if you add some lifestyle reasons to a work situation that's not satisfactory, working too many hours, too little rest and relaxation, and it continues. And there's what I had in my life is I had too little I've got a lot of activities that take a lot from me, and not a lot of activities that bring joy. Simple things like cycling or hiking, or doing stuff that I actually got to a point where I did not know what I liked. I couldn't identify what my wants and likes was. I was just so, dear my God, that's confused. I lost track of myself. So it's in the sense that there was this distance between myself, and so I didn't really know. I looked after myself very poorly. And I was giving it home and giving it work. Now, also, I was trying to be too many things for too many people all at once, trying to please people, so that was one of the difficulties. Obviously, taking on too many responsibilities with too little support, not delegating as well. I thought I was doing well, and I probably was doing a good job, but the price was too high. So, if you get insufficient sleep, you've got to look at the research. The research says 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Some people say they can function with 5 or 6 hours, but the research shows it shortens your life. So go and have a look at that. And I was quite isolated socially. So I started to isolate myself, because you don't have energy. You don't want to reach out to people, but people might be the reason that you are burnt out, but that will also be the reason that you will get out of burnout. So you do need people, and I needed the right kind of people, because I was surrounded by clients or patients all day long, and then small children and all those things. And although I loved my family, that was not enough. There wasn't enough to receive. So I needed to do something else. So you do need supportive groups. So I joined men's groups at my local church, and I've joined other things that have brought fresh water in. It's as if you're a dam, and there are two little rivers flowing, and the rivers that are flowing into your dam are limited, or they pour a lot of poison into your dam, and then your sluices are open, and you're giving a lot, but there's not enough coming in. So in the end, your water drains out. What about your personality? Your personality might be like mine. You're perfectionistic. You want to do something perfect, and you want to do everything perfect. It's just you've got an unrealistically high standard. That whereas something that counters perfectionism is when you've got excellence as your standard. So yeah, perfectionism, meaning that I was hard on myself, wasn't giving myself a lot of acknowledgement, wasn't satisfied with my job. So what does that do internally? It creates depression. It creates that unsatisfactory feeling, the dissatisfaction. So which leads to more demotivation. And obviously, some people are critical of their environment. They see the pothole before they see the road, the rest of the road. It's good to see the pothole. You've got to see it. But if you only see the pothole, that's where it becomes a dilemma. And as you become burnt out, you tend to see only potholes. So it becomes a vicious cycle. And then there's a desire, so, the old type A personality. You want to be in control. You don't want to delegate. You're a driver. You push yourself very hard. And then and you also push other people very hard. So you start to get conflict with people. That also adds a lot of fuel to burnout. And people experience burnout differently. Some people might experience that intense stress where they just feel that their body is in a state of tension. And some people just feel that exhaustion. So if you've got conflict too regularly as well, so on the DISC analysis, if you are the D or the C, you tend to burn out very quickly. Those are the twos. The other two might be too lazy to burn out. Okay, so you get to a place of fight or flight. Did you know that you've got your nervous system as the sympathetic and the parasympathetic central nervous system? So if you talk about those two nervous systems, what we are just deducing it to is that if you are constantly in the stress mode, you're activating your sympathetic nervous system response. That is saying that your pupils are expanded, you are breathing fast, your heart pumps faster, and it's because you've got to run away from this threat that is there. But what you actually need to do is to move over into the parasympathetic nervous system every now and then, where your pupils start to shrink, you start to take slower and deep breaths, your heart slows down, your gut becomes more active, and you start to experience calmness. Now, I have to actively work at going into my parasympathetic nervous system. The last couple of weeks have been very busy in my life. My practice is full, the ministry is going, so I've got a lot on my plate. But what I'm trying to do in between is to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, take deep breaths, go and take walks, spend time with the Lord, spend time with friends. Those things take me to a place of a bit more balance. So hard work is not the problem. It is also about how you manage your life and all the things around it. And whether you can do what Jesus did, is just go and hide in the mountains for a while until the people find you. So go and take those times, even when you're in your busiest of moments. You just cut out some non-negotiable resting times. Now, how do you do that if you've got a lot of children at home and you've got to look after them and your husband's at work? There must be something that you can do to take a couple of hours on your own, just to calm down and to actively think of, I need to start to learn to relax. Burnout doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process that creeps up on you. And now that I was burnt out 10 years ago, I can tell you now, I used to see about 50 patients a week, and 35 of those was in the psychiatric hospital, so it was tiring. And I can tell you now that I don't have that capacity anymore, which is a good thing. So I need to now work diversely. So that's why I'm doing this tonight. It's part of my passion and sharing some of these things with you. It is changing the way that I work. So I've started to say, where do I have control? Because at some point I said, stuff psychology. I'm going to live on a bushveld farm in the middle of the veld, on the top of a hill, on a koppie, so that I can see if anybody comes from a distance, so that I can go in the opposite direction. I just want to run away or start some plant nursery somewhere, because I thought plants don't speak to you, they don't take from you. But it was a drastic, desperate place. Now, when you get to that gradual place, the idea now is, if you're not burnt out yet, the idea is to say, okay, what do I do to manage my balance and to start to recover? When you're in the first half of your life, Bob Buford says in his book Halftime, he says you are success focused. And in the second half, ideally it would be significance focused. Now, my first half, I'm 44 now, has been success focused. So it was driven on making money, becoming a professional, building a business, those things. But in that process, I didn't manage my life. So it has damaged me, and I now have to accommodate that into my life now. And I've already gone over to significance. That's why I'm also talking to you, to try to do it, add some significance as well. But it is not just staying in that success drive of pushing yourself to gain success. That's where a relationship with the Lord comes in, and where it changes your outlook on life and on why you are doing what you're doing. Because if you are only doing it because you are really seeking status and success and something for yourself that you can feel proud of, which is not bad in essence, but if that's the main reason and you're actually wanting to look good in the eyes of others only, then you might push yourself beyond certain boundaries, because it's got to do with identity. But if you know that you are loved by the Lord, and that you are precious, and He's got a plan for you, and He is not an Egyptian taskmaster that lashes you and that pushes you beyond what you can do. He's somebody that takes you to green pastures of rest, and He refreshes your soul. And He says in Psalm 23 verse 6, their goodness and the love of the Lord follows you. So He anoints your head with oil. He makes your cup overflow. So if it is you that are pushing you, then maybe you need to start asking yourself questions as to whether you are doing what is the Lord's will for your life, because He will not push you beyond that and just say, just give me more. That's not Him. That's the enemy. So if you start to look at that, and you start with your relationship with the Lord, then you are asking different kinds of questions. Then you are asking questions of, okay, who am I serving? Am I really serving the Lord Jesus, or am I serving myself? Because the Lord talks about taking off that hard and heavy yoke of the law that says you have to do all these things to please Him. And He says, come to me, I'm gentle, I'm humble, I'm lowly. I'll give you rest for your souls. You'll rest in His ability to save you and to give you life. So it starts there, to come back to Him and to hear and listen from Him what He says. Now let's get back to some of the dilemmas with what causes burnout, as well as the way you think. It's then not depending on the Lord, and in the Message translation it says those unforced rhythms of grace. It's not leaning into Jesus and just walking with Him. It is, I'm going to solve the problem. I'm responsible for the outcome. Like I would say, I'm responsible for the change in my clients, only me. Or if I'm mentally strong, I'll be able to work with these problems and needs. Or I'm not a good mother because I'm stressing, or I'm so tired and I'm whining and I'm complaining all the time. I must be a bad mother, and or I'm trying to impress my congregation or the people who work for me. In the end, Those things are some of the things that will fuel your burnout. Or if there's a panic place, I don't have enough resources to do everything. Money, energy, training, time. I just don't have enough, and you feel panicky about that. Or your family and friends will understand that you are involved in important things and you cannot be with them now. So you're postponing those important relationships that are actually of a giving nature, that actually anchor you. Or you say, no, listen, I know what this is going to take of me. I can do it. Um, and usually those drivers say that. They say, I can do this. And it's not bad to say you can do it. It's just, are you realistic? Are you taking into account everything? The word says that a builder should obviously make his calculations before he builds a house and work out if he's going to have enough money to do it. So he's got to do the calculations. Now, to tell you the truth, I don't think you have enough to do it. We don't really have enough to do it. It's learning to depend on the Lord, to rest in Him, to come to a place where you say, Lord, I need your wisdom. Because if I'm just going to continue to push myself, then I'm going to wear myself out. I need to start to learn how to depend on you and lean on you. He talks about his strength. Now, his strength kicks in when your strength ends. So there is a place of burnout that will help you to do that, but you don't have to be burnt out to start to depend on the Lord. There is a verse that I want to encourage you with. It is Psalm 145, verse 18 and 19. And it says that the Lord is near to all who call on Him, to all who call on Him in truth. He fulfills the desires of those who fear Him, and He hears their cry and saves them. So the Lord is near if you call on Him in truth. So it's about sincerity, and that He says He fulfills the desires. And what's your desire then? It's for life. It's for energy. It's to live again. And He says those who fear Him. That means those who really respect Him and who seek Him. And He hears your cry and He saves you. There's another one in 3 John 2. So it says, Beloved, I pray that in every way you may succeed and prosper and be in good health physically, just as I know your soul prospers spiritually. So this is what John prays for somebody else that's struggling with some illness. But he is praying that the Lord will bless him in every way, that he might experience success and prosperity. Now, this is not just getting Ferraris and houses and whatever, and physical or material success, although the Lord wants to bless you and look after you. It's about much more, and it's about life. It's about getting Jesus. So you see Him manifesting through you. So Psalm 138 verse 4 says, In the day that I cried out to you, Lord, you answered me, and you made me bold with strength in my soul. And that's my prayer for you, that you will experience how the Lord makes you bold with strength in your soul. So, you know what, burnout, there's a quote for you. Burnout is not about giving too much of yourself only. It's also about trying to give what you do not possess. So it's not just about giving too much of yourself. It is that also. But it is about trying to give what you don't possess. So that means you need to get something. Mickey, who works for Matters of the Soul, said these following words. She said, rest is not a luxury. It's a necessity that needs to be prioritized and invested in. Now, I've learned that on the hard way, and that's difficult. And then there's another one that says burnout is a sign that something needs to change. So those symptoms are telling you that, hey, you got to change something. You've got to do something. So what you need to ask yourself then is, what is my physical, emotional, and spiritual condition at the moment? What am I feeling? Where am I really? And if you want to also measure that, you can use the Maslach burnout inventory. That's the gold standard to measure your levels of burnout. And you can also ask yourself, do I really manage my stress effectively? Now, some of the circumstances in your life might not be within your control to change. And you might have limited control. But there will be something that you can do to change something, and that will at least make some difference. And that, first of all, if you lay in your face before the Lord and we say, Lord, just cover him or her, please, and come and bless them. And then you'll experience how the Holy Spirit will come and help you. And then ask the Lord to start to teach you how to get out of burnout. So when you go into the unforced rhythms of grace, that means you're following the guidance of the Holy Spirit. And what he then does is he gives you something that the world or the psychology and coaching fraternity calls resilience. The positive psychology talks about resilience and flourishing. So resilience in Afrikaans, it's veerkragtigheid, that is pushing down a spring or coil spring and then it bounces back. So it's the ability to adapt to your environment's demands and to act as a survivor rather than a victim. So it is about your mentality, your approach. Do you approach your life as a victim? That means you complain and whine and blame other people. Or do you start to say, listen, I've got a responsibility as well here. I need to ask the Lord. I need to listen to him and follow him. And I need to stop blaming other people and start to see what I can do differently. So it is about changing from what we call an external locus of control to an internal locus of control. That means taking charge and saying, instead of blaming and whining and fighting others, I'm going to see what I can do to change this in an effective way. So that means that you take charge. Now, did you know that you can develop a very wonderful thing, what they call post-traumatic growth? Now, that is something that is in psychology. It's being debated at the moment. Is there such a thing as post-traumatic growth, post-trauma growth? But we know from the Word of God that the Lord says, count it all joy when you encounter various trials, because it builds your faith, it leads to hope, it leads to an experience of the love of God, and the Lord will give you wisdom, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. That means the way that the Lord sees you and the joy of the Holy Spirit in you, finding joy in knowing that what you are going through with him, if you follow him through it, will have an eternal reward. That brings you joy, and it brings you hope beyond a circumstance that might even be a permanent thing like a terminal cancer or a permanent disability. So those things might bring you hope that you can also grow from this. Now, I've certainly experienced growth in my life. I do not want to go through burnout again. Hello, yes, who wants to? I don't want to go through it again, but I have seen growth. We've seen tremendous growth in our marriage and in my own way of life. So I've experienced a lot of satisfaction. I do have to tell you, I was at a place of extreme desperation. So I had some suicidal thoughts, which was quite disturbing to even for myself. And it was not to kill myself, it was to escape my situation and the desperation. So you might even get to a place where depression sets in. And it was hard. It was very hard. But I've gotten through it, and there was a scripture verse that the Lord gave me those days. It was Psalm 18. I don't exactly know where it is, but it says, he looked down from on high, he grabbed hold of me and drew me out of many waters. So the Lord wants to do that for you too. But it is also about calling out to him. If you're very burnt out at the moment and you say, look, I don't know what to do, I've just got to do something like as a case of emergency. First of all, okay, own where you are at the moment. Just own it. Just say, I recognize it, I acknowledge it, I'm going to own it, it's my responsibility. You can't do it alone. You need others' support. You need some professional help maybe, and you need the Lord as well. So you need to do those. Start with those three things, and then you need to get rest as soon as possible. That is like in ASAP, rest. You need up to 3 months sometimes of just a break. If you can't take it, and I know you're saying, oh geez, I can't do that. Maybe you can take a week or two. That won't do it, but at least it'll do something. Every break that you take will do something. But you'll see that you do need to get away from the stressors, and then you need to regroup, and you need to start to say, okay, what are my goals and priorities here? What is causing this burnout problem for me? What is the one thing that I can change that will already make the biggest difference? You know, in psychology, we talk about the nodal point. You know, in some swimming pools, they have these nets, and that in the middle, they converge. And if you unravel that middle, it's as if you can unravel this whole thing. So it's the same with this burnout. What's that one thing that you know you can do? For me, it was lowering the caseload. So yes, it had a financial implication. So I had to lower my expenses as well and trust the Lord for finances and for provision and follow his guidance. And he did provide. So for me, it was also to slowly introduce changes. Some things had to be drastic, like the lowering of the caseload. It happened over 3 months. But then the changes, some of the other changes, you can't go running the comrades now, the marathon of 90 kilometers. You've got to come down and say, look, let me just start walking around the neighborhood for starters, and just slowly start with incremental changes and start to involve other people that are supportive. Those people that are blood suckers and that are burdens, if you can create some healthy distance between you and them for the time being until you're ready to face them again, or if it's not possible, then involve more positive people so you can at least get some petrol from that. And then whatever you can do to change your work schedule, your appointments, your time off, just do it. Use all the maneuvering space you have. Start to ask yourself questions, if this is the role that you want to do, and if you cannot get out of the role, can you make some adjustments? Can you negotiate with your boss? You'll be surprised if you ask what could happen if you start to ask for changes. If there's anything where you can reduce your responsibilities or delegate, it'll be great. If there's bullying, you need to see a professional maybe to help you with this. But bullying needs to be addressed ASAP. It sucks the life out of you, and it's nonsense. And if you allow a bully to bully, he's going to increase his bullying. So you need to stop that in its tracks. What you also need to do is see if there's anything in your life at the moment. Go and draw up a life map of how your activities look every day. Just go through your week, list all the activities according to the hours, and see what you're involved in. Is there anything that you can stop? Now try not to stop the ones that are giving to you as well. You also need to continue giving to others, because we don't want to shut out and stop those sluices totally from giving. Otherwise, you're going to build up another problem. The water will stagnate. So you need to keep on giving, but at least limit some of those. So what I used to do is I said, okay, I'm limiting the amount of time I'm giving to patients, and I started to explore different things. And that's actually where Matters of the Soul started. Where can you simplify? Can you get some extra help in? In South Africa, we're very privileged to be able to get extra help to help us in the house, in the garden. Can you do that? Can you simplify your expenses? Now, some of you might say, but I'm so tired, I don't have enough strength to do these things. Then you go and see somebody that can help you to say, okay, what's a smaller step? Let's break it down to even smaller steps and start there. Essentially, in the end, you want to have rest weekly, quarterly, and yearly. And you want to have boundaries around your working hours and your load. Can you see? I've got boundaries. I'm working at 9:15 at night. I mean, it's a wonderful boundary, but I'm going to have some time off tomorrow when you're all going to be working. And in the long term, what do you want to do? Obviously, you want to have a look at the kind of work you're doing. You need to maybe change the work, change your career even, or just change the role that you're in, or the place, or the way that you're doing your work. Like I'm doing a different kind of psychology work here. You might even say, I've got to leave this whole job and go and do something else. So sometimes you need to do drastic stuff. And sometimes you really need to apply strict boundaries with other people as well, and start to stand up for yourself, start to communicate those assertive things. When you're burnt out, you might not feel the energy to do that. So that's why somebody professional will help you and encourage you to do it step by step. What should you not do? You shouldn't work longer and more and say, okay, I just have to finish this. I'm just going to finish this job. That's what I used to do. I'm just going to get through this week. It'll be better. It'll be better. It's like saying I'm going to start my diet on Monday. I'll just start Monday. Yeah, right, you're going to start Monday. Then it's Wednesday, then it's Friday, and then it's Sunday, and now you're on a guilt trip and you're going to start tomorrow again. And then maybe you start Monday and you break it by Tuesday. And or just go on doing what you're doing, don't change anything. Now that's also not going to help, because then obviously nothing's going to change. So we need to change at least something, and then change at least another thing. Everywhere that you have the ability to change something. And if you don't know what else you can change, that's where professional help or somebody that understands burnout can give you their perspective, and that might give you more options. Sometimes people say, okay, wait, I'm just going to do all this work and just rush through it. But then what will happen is you'll be more stressed. You'll have to go and do work over, and that'll just give you more negative feedback. No, that's just going to add on to the pile of guilt that you already feel and the anxiety. Or you start to fight with other people. That'll not help. Or start to hurt yourself or other people. That's also not going to make it better. It won't make it better. Or start to go on binges, whatever it is, benders. It's not going to help as well. Or to criticize yourself and come down on yourself very harshly because of your stupidity to overwork. No, it's self-blame actually worsens your patterns. So another thing that you maybe should consider not to do is to run away from the Lord. I found running to the Lord, even when you've sinned, to be wonderful, refreshing, because He covers you with unfailing love, and He really cares for you. So those are some of the things that you need to do. Psalm 55 gives a wonderful scripture. It says, verse 22, give your burdens to the Lord and He will take care of you. He will not permit the godly to slip and fall. Now, in the old days, those camels, they would pack up a whole load on their backs, and when they have to let go or take off the load, what the camels would do is come down to the ground and then turn around on their sides and roll and repose their care and their load. So they'll let go of the load in that way. So what you need to do then is to go down and rest with the Lord and say, Lord, I cannot bear this. Please help me to give this to you, even because I struggled with it as well, to learn how to trust the Lord. He talks about giving, making your problem His problem. Now, some people say, but I have done that and He's not answered me. One thing that I found with myself there is that I've not been listening to Him. So I had to go back to say, Lord, what was the last thing you really said to me? And that for me, that was Matthew 6:33. He said, look, Erich, you're not really seeking my kingdom. You're not putting it first. You're trying to build your own kingdom and get some relief for yourself. You're not really trying to align with my plan for your life, for my kingdom and my glory. You just want more money to solve your problem, or pay off your debts or whatever. Say, yes, I'm going to help you with that, but seek me first. So that's what I had to learn. So another thing is, please say yes to help. Saying no to help will leave you more isolated. You're not an island. And if you can, start to just connect it with at least one other person that that you can trust, to tell them where you're at. And another thing that you can do is start to look at the other side of the picture, the bright side. What is right with your situation? What activities in your life currently do bring you joy, and what else can you bring in? I know I'm giving you a lot of info. What motivates you? Love, guilt, Savior, Jesus Christ, service. What motivates you really? And when you know what motivates you, at least then you can also start to figure out what you really want to do. And then ask yourself, where do I really need to say no? And another thing is, am I playing according to my strengths? Now, I've got a whole list of other things that you can do that are really wonderful, and I'm going to I'm going to put that on the Matters of the Soul website. So it's be a chart of spiritual interventions, physical, psychological, and other things that you can do. Now, these are just suggestions. Sometimes some of these things might look so simple or common, or you've heard of them and you know them, that you might overlook them. And it might be actually a danger that you say, oh, no, just that. Go to a retreat. What's that? Go into nature often. Okay, now I do that. Yes. What you actually need to do is to stop and say, am I really actively doing these things? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? And start to just involve those things in your life. Specifically, tick down those lists and say, let me go and walk with a dog. Let me see where I can bring in humor in my life and actively try to do this and try to. So what that does is make sure that you intentionally do things to help yourself. The Lord wants to give you strength, and he wants to help you and give you mercy. There's another quote from Pastor Jerry Jernander where he said, our struggles and wounds drive us to Christ. It's not the nicest way to get to Christ, but we get there sometimes through our struggles and wounds, but we get to Christ. We don't. And if you open up yourself and you say, Lord, please let this wounded situation lead me to you, that will be a blessing. And then the Lord does not forget his children. In Isaiah 49, he says, can a woman forget her nursing child and have no compassion on the son of her womb? Even these may forget, but I will not forget you. Indeed, I've inscribed a picture of you on the palms of my hands. So he says, you're right there. You're permanently in his sight. So it's wonderful. He loves you. And, so my advice to you then is to come to the Lord and to go and rest with him. So that means you go and spend time with him and allow him to minister to you. So it's not just you that have to work and impress the Lord. He wants to bless you as well. So God bless you. It was nice spending time with you. If you have any questions, please post them for me over there, and I won't forget to post those slides for you. God bless. So we'll have a look at another topic as well next time. Cheers.